Okay, let us continue with adjusting the first part of the card. We will doing that by going into the weather card, and we will start with the forecast. Okay, let us start with this one. At the moment, as you can see, we have multiple data that we want to show here, and we will create different signals for all of them, but we will make like a small trick to have at least one input to get all the data, and then spreading that data over the template. What we firstly need is an object that contains our data that we need in that component. That means we have to create an interface that allows us to type all of this. We're creating this one inside of the app with name models, and we will name here a new file forecast weather view data dot interface dot ts. So let us create the interface forecast weather view data. The data that we now need here for the first part of this, we can quickly take again a look on it. We have the day of the forecast, we have a temperature, we have the weather, and we have here an icon. All of this now will be partially a little bit in the future. We will adjust here the link. You not have to know exactly what we're doing for that link thing, but yeah. Okay. What we need is a temperature. We need a date that will be in milliseconds. We will have the weather, which is described by main. This means we have like two different weather descriptions. We have the main, which is like the generic kind, which means it says it's raining or it's sunny. But the description we also have describes it a little bit deeper, like it's very stormy or something like that. It is like description is a more extended version of the weather. We have a string that describes an icon, and we have the wind speed which describes overall the wind speed of this day. Okay, then let us quickly create here some test data to make this step easier. I already have created a data set for this. We have here to import our model. Humidity. Did I forget that one? Yeah, I forgot that one. Yeah, and wind speed are defined like that. Okay. That's like an example. As you can see, the description says like it's light rain and the main says raining. Ready to learn Angular 19, 20 and 21. This course covers everything new in this latest versions. From hydration, event replay, resource API, signal forms, we cover it all. You will get a complete playground app showcasing all features. Plus, we will build a weather app from scratch to implement everything hands-on. Full source code for both projects included. Check the link in the description. Okay, now we want to get that data spread over the component. We can do that by using a signal, of course. What we can do, I will create quickly here a forecast attribute. And what we now can do, we firstly will create a signal, but later we can get signals as an input. And that will be interesting, but we will here firstly get this forecast as an initial value for our signal. So, and what we now can do is we can create computed signals, as we had it already in the theoretically part of the course. We can say day name, and then we can define a computed. It's again something we have to import. And now the tricky parts begin. A computed is also a signal, as we had it in the theoretically part. And as we also have said, that if we're using a signal inside of a computed, it recognizing that and know if it has, when it has to be rewant. So for the day name, we will make a small list here on the top, say Monday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's sorted like starting with Sunday because the date that we will create, if you're calling the day function, it's returning 0 when it means Sunday, and then it continues with Monday. Okay, let us create this date. New date. Here we will use our weather forecast signal that we have made. And using the date variable of it multiplied by 1000. Okay, then this is in, as you can see, it is then in seconds instead of milliseconds, but this function needs the time in milliseconds. And then we return based on the variable we have defined, could also be a const. And we use here the date.getDay function to get the right string out of it, which means here we getting the date by getting the data from the data set, getting the day out of it, and that one returning an index with 0 for Sunday, 1 for Monday, and so on. And we can now start to fulfill our needs here in our template. Can here simply say now day name, again with brackets because it's a signal. Even it is here as defined as computed, it returns a signal. And we can now take a look, and today is the 26th July. It's a Friday, and you can see here it's Friday. It said multiple times because the last part we have added this component multiple times. We will remove that for the moment. So now we have the next data set. The next data set will be the weather icon. We will again creating a computed signal. And here we building again a templated string. This one I will copy because it's most likely a prepared link. What it does is it gets the same base link as here, and this short naming here describes the icon that we want to use. In our case, we're getting it here by getting the forecast data weather.icon to get the string that has to be placed here. So what we're now doing for the template part, we changing the source to be an input and inserting our template right here. So it looks exactly the same, but if we would change this to be an if we're changing our data set to be like, I'm not sure, but 11. Yeah, as you can see, it's new, different icon, which means now it is based on our data. So next one will be the temperature. Now it's more or less in repetition, which means we have to again create a computed. I will skip it a little bit. We'll go over it and we'll explain it, of course. We have a computed signal again. And what happens here is that the temperature that we get later from an API is in Fahrenheit. And our UI shows Celsius, which means we need to convert that to types. And what I'm doing here is I subtracting the offset from the temperature to get the Celsius variable, but this temperature later can have more decimal places, and I only want to see the real number. And what we can do now is we can multiply this by 100 to get 2 decimal places, then rounding it to get all decimal places away. Like the example could be, we have a temp from 283. We subtracting 273, which means we have then 10. If we have like here, I don't know, a few decimal places, we subtracting this, which means it will be this after that subtraction. Then we multiply it by 100. Like here we can go over this. Then we multiply it by 100. That would lead to something like this. Then we rounding that value here, which means from like the rest of the decimals that we have, we go to no decimal places, and then we dividing that one again by 100, which then leads to 10.223. That's the main thing. We kind of getting from this to Celsius by this, and then we're making a few tricks to subtract all decimals until a specific number. What you also can do, by the way, instead of this one, you can get rid of this one and can say to fixed 2 places. It's only be like that. That's like an easier way, but to fixed would mean that it always have 2 decimal places. The other one like also would show numbers with less decimal places. We can quickly take a look. If we go here and use the temperature, you can see that you have now .00, and with the conversion that we had before here, we get 10. Yeah. Okay, and lastly, we have the weather main. That's super easy. We can say weather forecast, calling that function, and then can deeper go into that one to get the main name. And now we have done this whole part to be dynamic, and we can show, like, for example, you can see it's raining too now. Yeah, okay, and we can here, for example, go and decrease up Fahrenheit up, and we get one less. Okay, now we want to get rid of this by moving this inside of our forecast component like this. We again has to import that one. What we now can do, because now we don't can initialize our signal directly, we has to call the input, or the, I think it's introduced by 7.2. We have like input dot, or like an input function. That's like the easiest one. We has, of course, has to type this to be a weather forecast data set. As you can see, now we have a problem that it says object is possible undefined. The problem with this is that at the moment we have an optional input. We can type required instead to say that this input is required to be filled. That leads now to problems if we want to call this component without this attribute. What we now can do is providing that weather forecast with our prefix data, and it builds again. And we can have now moved the data one level up, which means we can now change this one and it will update our values in the UI.